Yeah, we've been getting some really cool. Well, that was the impetus for this conversation, as I've told you 6 times, Nathan. But for the audience, Jennifer, whose last name we don't know. Jennifer, if you're here, you'll know if you're the one that asked the question. But it was the question about how we're tackling the generosity crisis. And I said, this is like 3 weeks ago, and I said, well, why don't we ask the gentleman that wrote the book? So I think it's a good segue. We'll let some folks come in, but a really nice segue to introduce our friend Nathan. Nathan's a friend of HGA's, a friend of the Hey Nonprofits podcast, a brilliant fundraiser with decades of experience, also a best-selling author. I'm holding up The Generosity Crisis, 3-year anniversary.
Yeah, just 3 years. It's crazy. Yeah.
So we're going to get into it. And then, of course, the new Nonprofit AI book as well. And we're going to get into that a little bit as well. I saw your email today about your 5 tips for AI, for how to use AI for fundraisers.
Yeah.
We can even get into that a little bit. I thought that was apropos. It was good.
Actually, you could just read that, and then you don't have to read the book, because it basically it came. It's the top 5 things from the book.
That's awesome. It was good, and we can link that email in the show notes and put it out with the recording as well. But hey, my name's Trevor Nelson. If this is your first time here, it's great to meet you. Sandy Hilsenrath, our producer, is behind the scenes as well. And but if you're a returning webinar guest, thank you so much for coming back. Really appreciate it. It's my pleasure to introduce our friend Nathan Chappell. Nathan, I'm going to have you explain what you're doing with Virtuous, fundraising.ai, and just kind of like your work right now, because you can do it a lot better than me. And then we'll get into the generosity crisis in the episode and all that stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me again, Trevor. It's great to be able to hang out with you and just chat about all these things. So, so my role at Virtuous is technically, my title is Chief AI Officer. And while that's a more common title in the private sector, it's not as common in the nonprofit sector. I think I might have been the first or second. Essentially, it means different things in different organizations. For me, AI is embedded in everything we do as a software company. And, it's important to have somebody that's kind of looking at it from a 30,000 foot view to say, are we connecting all the right dots? Are we putting the effort in the right places? Are we hiring for and training people in the right way? But also, are we doing things that are going to be additive for the industry and not, try to avoid unintended consequences? So I kind of joke that I'm like the AI conscience of our organization, because just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. There's lots of ways to use AI to manipulate donors to give, and there's a lot of temptation to do that. And so I end up being kind of that voice of reason. Now, I spent 20 years fundraising, so that's probably why I have that very protective kind of sense around, fundraisers and fundraising. I mean, that was majority of my career. And it was, in fact, in 2017, I started working in AI as a fundraiser. And when I knew that, we could use machine learning to essentially better understand the motivations of giving. So that was 2017, did a TEDx on the topic of AI and generosity 2018, and kind of the rest is history.
Yeah. I'm not putting, I'm not typecasting it, but it's you told me like you weren't getting invited to a lot of dinner parties when you wrote the generosity crisis, for your words, when we had you on the pod. And I'm like, I get it. And it is a little somber because the term crisis is in it. But as you mentioned in your own words, it's a book of hope. And so I just want folks to know that we'll rip the Band-Aid off a little bit, and then kind of get into how we're fixing it. And of course, once again, a broad stroke, but being you're the founder of fundraising.ai, and you're driving this ship, so to speak, but you're quadrupling down on relationships,
well,
so.
I mean, that's the juxtaposition of it, right? Is that we've got AI, which is synthetic and not human, and ideally use it to enhance human ability to do more human things and benefit from that dividend of time. But people wrestle with that. Like how, in fact, when I did the TEDx in 2018, and it was called AI and the Future of Generosity in Lincoln Square in New York, I mean, people looked at me like I had 3 heads. Like they didn't think those words went together. And, and sure enough, I mean, I knew that when we started using AI to predict generosity, that it was going to change everything. I mean, I was like absolutely convinced in 2017, like this is it's going to change everything. But it takes people a while to kind of come to that. We're still, I mean, adoption is pretty high, but strategic use of AI is not.
Yeah.
It was around the same time actually that I tried to convince other people to write a book called The Generosity Crisis for years, like 3 or 4 years. I was like, everyone I met, I'm like, you should write a book called The Generosity Crisis. And that really stemmed from my work. I was at UC San Diego as associate vice chancellor at the time. And, I had this epiphany moment one day where I knew that our goals were increasing and the number of donors were decreasing. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, like year over year over year, like where does this end? It doesn't end well. Yeah. And I think I came to grips with the idea that it's not kind to just make people feel okay. Like kindness is not putting people into a false sense of security. And so, for me, calling it what it was, like it is absolutely a crisis. Like what has worked in the past will not work in the future. It doesn't end well for anyone. And so not surprisingly, no one decided to write the book, even after my valiant attempts to do that, and ended up, I think, out of just pure exhaustion of like, someone's got to do this and ring the bell.
Yeah.
But I remember actually I tried to change the name of the book about 2 weeks before it came out, and the publisher was like, "No, you're not doing that."
Yeah.
But
this one's too juicy, Nathan.
Well, and they actually did. They were like, "Look, someone needs to do it. Someone needs to kind of, we put a lot of lipstick on the pig for a long time, so someone needs to tell it like it is." And Arthur Brooks, who teaches happiness, he's the #1 professor at Harvard. He just wrote a book with Oprah. Like, he's a best-selling author. He's amazing. He wrote a testimonial for the book because he had written a book on philanthropy 20 years ago called Who Really Cares? Okay. And in some ways, this is like a follow-up to that. And things have shifted a lot in 20 years. And he actually is the one who called it a book of hope, which was pretty amazing to come from him. Yeah.
Super flattering. Yeah. Among so many other emotions, for sure. Sandy, I pulled a clip. I've listened to the podcast and I've listened to a lot of your work, and I take copious notes, but I listened to the podcast that you and I did probably 10 times. And I yanked a clip on my bike the other day from it. And I want Sandy to play it, and I want to see, and if I can paraphrase if she can't yank it up, but I want to see if it resonates with the audience. And it was
problems, honestly, they never get easier. And I think that was a big reason why I wrote my first book, which was I spent 20 years fundraising, and you would think after 20 years your job would get easier. And it did not. Like my job got harder every year.
Yeah.
And it was like, because essentially we were raising more money from less people for 20 years. And I didn't really know the effect of that. But at the end of the day, I started projecting out in the future. I'm like, at what point does this become like the self-fulfilling prophecy that we're just all competing for wealthy people? Like, and at the end of the day, just burning everybody out. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of an inevitable conclusion that if we don't change our focus from transactions to relationships, then we were going to do that.
Yes.
Nice hat.
I love those hats. Actually. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, expand on that, and then what that means for folks now, because everyone's, we're all talking about the burnout piece. We're all talking about, the shrinking donor pool and whatnot, or it's always in the zeitgeist, if you will. Expand on that if you don't mind, Nathan.
I think the manifestation of that came as a fundraiser where, the job is hard. It's not an easy job. And in many ways, I didn't even really think of it as a job. I thought of it as a way of life. Like people who become fundraisers in whatever form that takes shape, whether it's events or whether it's, mid-level, major, principal, whatever, you're living this life. There's a lot of things that you could do, but you feel called to do this work. And so it's kind of more of a calling, but that doesn't make it easier. And, when I reflected back on year 2000, I became an accidental fundraiser. I was a board member. Our director quit. I stepped in naively thinking, well, I can keep an eye on things for a little while. And I ended up, spending 7 years at a Boys and Girls Club and learned a lot about fundraising, what worked, what didn't work. Really formative for me. I think that back then we didn't have a CRM. The very first CRM I bought was eTapestry. That was like novel back then. Yeah. But I mean, we had a Rolodex, and if those are, too young to not know what a Rolodex is. It's like literally a wheel that you put on your desk, and it had note cards, and the cards would fit in. And right, you have one? I mean, you could sell that on eBay.
No, I had one.
You had one.
It's in a box in like a storage unit or something
right.
like that. Yeah.
I mean, and honestly, didn't really understand the value of that back then, but that was your database. Basically, your ability to be successful as a fundraiser was how many cards are there, and what is the success of being able to go through and be like, oh, this person, I'm going to give them a call and, see if they'll grab lunch with me. And so I started fundraising in this like highly, highly relational type of business. And it was the value of my worth to the organization was essentially captured in the Rolodex, but it was the ability to activate that. And it wasn't until, and I don't know if I shared the story on the other podcast, but there was a really defining moment around probably 2015. I prided myself on hiring really smart people, and then I found this guy who was a PhD in econometrics, and we would build these like insane dashboards. We got really good at predicting revenue based on all the different activity.
Yeah.
And I remember distinctly one day in 2015 that we were talking about building a better mousetrap, and it was a very natural thing, and there was no remorse. It was just like, let's build a better mousetrap. And that was using all of our intelligence and trying new things and experimenting. And to be honest, and sadly, it didn't occur to me till several years later that I'd come to a point in my career from highly relational, Rolodex based, like, can we have lunch and solve these things together, to spending an entire day without remorse talking about donors as mice. And it didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, you didn't mention that on a previous conversation. It's interesting. I didn't know that you had that aha moment about your own career.
Yeah, and that's probably why the generosity crisis, it hit home around that time. And I'm like, wow, how did I go from this to this? How did I go from like completely relational to completely transactional to the worst degree, talking about donors as mice and building a better mousetrap? And that's become the race. That's become essentially the thing that most organizations, goals go up, resources don't grow at the same rate, are essentially trying to win a game versus lean into really what makes philanthropy special, which is, really a mindset and a shared belief system. And so there's just a lot of lessons, not to say that doing it the old way works entirely in the modern culture, but why we do it that way should be at the center. The donor should be at the center of everything we do, versus this idea of just like, let's just fill the leaky bucket so we don't get fired.
Right. It segues into some examples you've given. It was fascinating piece of the conversation we had previously as well, about how what you've pulled from what the private sector has nailed from a community perspective, for-profit companies have nailed and really, really quadruple down on building community. Can you share some examples and what happened?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's probably the biggest shift during that same 20-year period, that, I started fundraising. I could honestly say that nonprofits own the playbook of what relationship oriented activity means or action means. And that, we would talk about the relationship between the heart and the wallet. And if you want the wallet, you've got to really go to the heart. And during that period of time, the private sector was pretty absent of that. And main reason for that is I went to business school a long time ago. I won't age myself, but pretty much after 4 years of business school, there's just like one rule of business. And the one rule of business is to improve shareholder value at any cost. And I wish they would have just taught me that on the first day. It would have saved me like $100,000,
Exactly.
But I mean, it's like literally the one rule of business is like return value at to shareholder value. And, I remember there's a book by Tom Peters. Tom Peters came out, and I forget the name of his book, but it was a formative book that started talking about how you can go deeper than that, versus because business is very transactional. It was just like return value, and that could be at the cost of your employees. It could be at the cost of the environment. It didn't really matter. And Tom Peters, I think, was one of the most formative authors of the time, best-selling author, who was really talking about, well, people make decisions emotionally as well. And all of a sudden, within 20 years, businesses stopped being rewarded for transactional value of what they were selling in any given, year. and they were starting to be evaluated by the stock market based on LTV, so their lifetime value of their customers. So like the stock market went nuts, was like, oh, well, this is not just a successful business now, it's going to be a successful business future. And that's what we're betting on. Essentially, we're betting on the future. And so, early on, I mean, everyone remembers Tom Shoes. Tom Shoes was probably the first. I mean, I know they're not the first, but they were the first probably.
Oh yeah, the connection.
Yeah, that started, really being like, oh, if you buy a pair of shoes, we'll donate a pair and whatever. And that just opened Pandora's box to, I think, how big business, really started understanding the relationship between the heart and the wallet.
Yeah.
And more organizations started creating their corporate values that aligned, because we actually, now know that, 51% of people won't buy products from a company that defies their personal values. So you can't be successful in the future if you're just pissing people off. And so at the end of the day, we've seen a major shift in how for-profit businesses approach that heart and the wallet concept. And what's happened, because the nonprofit sector just felt like they owned that playbook, and they were always going to own that playbook. And they now find themselves not competing with other nonprofits, but they find themselves competing with for-profit entities with endless budgets and creative risk taking and all of the other things that go along with like research and development and all that. And I think that came pretty loud and clear after the book was written. I went on this like year-long roadshow, and I met with around 10,000 people. I did tons of workshops and listening to her. And I think it was that the biggest takeaway was that nonprofits are no longer in the business of raising money. You're in the business of building connection. And by the way, you're not the only one doing that. And so you've got to really rethink your strategy and your approach.
It forces you to sharpen the pencil. There's some things as well, though. Tell me if you, I mean, do you think it's easier for nonprofits because of the mission, for instance, where regardless of what the work is, to build community easier than a for-profit company, obviously? Just from like a brand perspective, like talk about that.
I don't know if it's easier. I mean, it should be easier. And
right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of nonprofits don't realize yet. So I guess, yes, to answer your question, there is this inherent ability to build community. I think so many of us forget it. Yeah. And,
because we take it for granted. Sorry to interrupt you, Nathan, but do you think that we take it for granted?
We do. Well, we do. And then we just kind of forget. And it's like, oh my gosh, like I knew when I worked at a cancer hospital, I knew our work was important, but our office and our administrative office is very officey. We weren't walking around with cancer patients. And so we were about 7 minutes away. We had to drive. But I knew instantly, like if I was feeling down about my work and just like, does this matter? If I could drive 7 minutes over to the campus and walk through our hospital, instantly I'd be refueled. And, the same is true. So yeah, I think nonprofits have that inherent ability, and that's a superpower. For-profits try to do similar things where they're like, oh, we're going to, buy 1,000 bicycles and our employees are going to come together and they're going to help put them together and we're going to give them out to whoever. So they try to fabricate that sense of, belonging and responsibility, but nonprofits have an inherent ability. So I think that's something that it's really important to tap into. Yeah. But I will say there's a report that came out a couple months ago that was from Vogue Business, that it was for Gen Z. And if you want to know where the future is going, you just look at the younger generation, how they're evaluating and purchasing and things like that. Mm-hmm. And their ultimate conclusion of this very comprehensive report was basically that the secret sauce, and actually the word they use, the secret sauce of brands today is making people feel that they're part of a community. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading that specifically to Gen Z, and it wasn't that it was profound, it was that the word feel, it's not that those brands are intending to bring people into community, but they understand that the secret sauce is making people feel that they're part of a community. Yeah. And, and a lot of times when I'm talking to nonprofit groups, I'm like, that's the delta, because you are the community and you don't have to make people feel it. You are the community. You're bringing them into what the truest sense of community is. And that's really special.
It is. I remember, like, once again, indelible when you said we are the community. We've always had it in spades. Like you said, we've like almost forget it or take it for granted. Right. I'm not putting that on people necessarily if they're doing a great job with brand and all that stuff, but that's a long play. Building that is a long play, but buying in early makes a ton of sense. You know, from there, as far as understanding that you have that already in spades, what are you doing to teach people or just like educate people about how it can be human? We can get together and we'll talk about events and stuff like that briefly and all that. But there's that, you know, it can be a digital community as well. It can be all, we're constantly saying fundraising is an and game. So we're not, you know, of course it's getting more difficult. We get that. So is business. I get that too. You know, we're a for-profit company ourselves, but it can be both. And managing both, and the tools, of course, that are at our ready now, we can get into that deep dive too. But like, you know, how are you speaking to folks when they're like, oh, we got the digital, this everything's over digitized, and we still got to have folks come and see what we're doing, and that balance, I suppose, you know?
Well, you know, a lot of times when I would do workshops on what we call radical connection. So ultimately in the book, you know, the book makes a pivot. So the first 100 pages are pretty stark. And that's, you know, the part where we're like, look, it's not kind to anyone if we just pretend everything is going well. Things are not going well. And you know, different ways to deal with conflict, but I'm a person that's like, if I know the facts, then I'm more prepared to actually take action.
Yeah.
So the first 100 pages we've been told goes down better with a box of cookies. And then the second, and if I could do it over, I would have done a cause marketing program with the Girl Scouts where it's like you buy the book and you get a free box of cookies. It would have been like amazing.
Yeah.
Second half of the book is really turns the corner of saying, okay, now if that's true and you're buying into that, like, what do we do? And so we use the word radical connection because we knew that just standard affiliation and association wasn't enough. And so not that radical was the right special word. It was just it couldn't be just connection as we knew it. So for fundraisers, first of all, it takes a moment of stepping back and recognizing, like, where are you at today? Are you just filling the leaky bucket? Are you building a better mousetrap? Are you just trying to win the race? And you're forgetting that inherent superpower that you have of being community, and you're forgetting that it's really about transformation of people coming together. And then the other part of it is forgetting that donors are consumers, and that the consumer marketplace has shifted dramatically, right? And so at the end of the day, your average donor, you know, is waking up. They're being bombarded by tons of algorithms and opportunities to engage and engage into communities, if you will, that, you know, that for-profit entities are aligning with. And so at the end of the day, I think that we have to step back from our work a little bit to see it more objectively, and then recognize, like, one of the questions I love to pose in a workshop is, you know, are you so confident in your donor experience that you'd offer a money back guarantee to every donor? Wow. And people just think it's like blasphemous. It's like, well, like, that's just like, what do you, right. Yeah. But I think it comes out of the fear of like, oh, whoa, like if we were so confident in our ability to like bring a person in and have them truly be in our community in the truest sense, and we would live up to our end of the bargain, we would give a money back guarantee, because those same consumers are waking up every day with all these other opportunities, knowing that, I mean, if I'm wearing a Patagonia, if I literally got a hole over here or whatever, I could literally bring this back 2 years later and they'll either fix it or replace it.
Yeah.
And that's the expectation for consumers today. And so I think that is recognizing that that's the mindset. And again, I say that with tons of opportunity, because nonprofits are the community, is to bring people in. But I think we treat donor relations and stewardship as a task and as a something like almost like a mundane thing. And frankly, over the last couple of weeks, I've heard several people saying, well, we need to use AI to automate the mundane routine things like stewardship. And I'm like, and everyone's like, yes, yeah, that's what we need to do, because like sending, you know, routine thank you letters, of course AI can do that. But I'm like, that scares the heck out of me, because if that's the most important part of fundraising, is how we embrace people, you know, after we receive a gift.
There's some interesting things happening, and I'm very, very bullish on 2026 and beyond. You know, I'm an optimist, and I know you are too. But you're not afraid to be honest.
I'm a closet optimist. Yeah.
You're a brilliant optimist, man. But no, I want you to speak to how, let's double click on that, actually, because I hadn't seen that myself, because it's like nails on a chalkboard for me hearing that, right? But I think I might have mentioned this to you before in person too, or on the last episode, is like, I think people can smell BS better than they ever have before, even though we're over digitized. Whether I'm right or wrong, fine. You can notice there's a real thoughtful shift towards relationships and connection in 2026. And I'm not even going to, I mean, it seems frothy, but I love it and I'm in. Okay, great. What comes behind that, or like where the muscle is behind that, is a whole different ball game. Right. But from there, I mean, I guess how do I frame that? I don't know why I'm at a loss. I apologize. But people can, what are you telling folks to do when they say things like that? What are you know what I mean? Like, as far as like, we know where it's going. This is not like, this is not my theory. It's going there because for whatever reason with AI and all these things, and you're at the forefront, people can really smell phonyism and they don't vibe with that, and it's going to become increasingly more popular, right?
Yeah. In fact, there's already, with the advent of, basically Nano Banana, Dolly 3, which are like image generators and video generators. I mean, it's like convincingly good.
Yeah.
Well, when everything's synthetic and everything's fake, you just tune everything out. So there'll be a renewed premium on authenticity. And I truly believe that there'll be a renaissance of the arts and like handcrafted things. There's the premium value of a handwritten card or a phone call or an actual text from an actual human. Just like, I don't need anything from you. I just wanted to check in and say how important you are to me or to our organization. Yeah. The small, simplest, cheapest forms of communication are literally like, I see you and I care about you. Yeah. And if you can do that and prioritize, that is not something that is like something we have to do, but something that we put at the forefront of what we do. Yeah. That changes everything. That becomes like your inherent superpower in the age of synthetic everything. Yeah. Is that your organization is, I mean, I'm a board member at a group called the FarmLink Project. I remember a couple of years ago. So the FarmLink Project stemmed from a couple college students that during COVID basically were told to go home, and they were bored and they were smart, and they saw the juxtaposition of farmers plowing their fields under because they couldn't afford transportation. So like perfectly good produce was just being literally tossed into giant ravines because they didn't have transportation. And then they saw, news segments with a line a mile long that, people are like waiting for food and food banks are running out of food. So they're like, why don't we just rent a U-Haul and we'll go pick up this food and we'll deliver it here. And now, I mean, this year they delivered 100 million pounds of food. So awesome. It's 5 years in the running. Yeah. But I think the difference is like with the FarmLink Project, a friend of mine who had been a nonprofit consultant, we go way back. She called me one day. She goes, I made a donation to the FarmLink Project. And she goes, in the same day, I received a phone call. She goes, I can't tell you in my entire, we've both been fundraising 20 years. She's like, that's never happened. I received a phone call from this college student just saying, thank you so much for making, it was like a $50 donation. Yeah. And that became, I mean, that's a moment that my friend Lindsay has never forgotten. Like she's never forgotten. Right.
That's a recurring thought at that point.
Right. Right. Then you're like, you now classified that organization in a special place in your brain. Yep. That sets it apart. And, coming off Giving Tuesday here, that sets it off, in a very different trajectory. So, I've seen a couple comments in the chat which are related to the same thing. I get this all the time. It's like, well, what do we do if I can't? Of course, like hiring a consultant to go kind of whip your board in shape. That's great. Like and there is value in that when you can hire consultants to do that, just because doesn't matter. I mean, I've been on both sides. Having someone externally who has nothing to lose tell, the truth. I think that really helps. But outside of that, it really becomes about incentives and orientation. So if your incentives as an organization are to raise more money, and that's what you're prioritizing, you're going to prioritize revenue over relationships. Mm-hmm. And so audit your board material. So your board packet, if you present a board packet every month or every quarter or whatever, and revenue is at the top and expenses are number 2, that's what you're reinforcing that issue. Yeah. But where are you putting retention or lifetime value, if they're even on the board report? So I tell people who can't afford a consultant, just literally take your board report, restack it, put your retention and lifetime value as your number two things. Like, this is what we're striving for, not just an organization that's successful today, but one that will be successful in the future. And we're investing in relationships. And that's why we put these things at top, and then put revenue and expenses, because of course everyone wants to know, like, can we, keep the lights on? Can we do that? And to be honest, we did that a couple of years ago, where I was at, and that made a huge difference. And the other thing we started doing is evaluating our fundraising based on a 3-year rolling average instead of annual 12 months, because we were trying to force donors into our timeline.
Yeah.
We started evaluating our fundraising on a 3-year rolling average. So this year plus the last 2. And that changed everything. It actually let our fundraisers breathe. And that came to me also with a really big epiphany day. I had well, he's a board member, but is a donor, a high net worth donor that loved our organization. Mm-hmm. And he came to me one day in this moment of honesty. He's like, Nathan, I think we have a good relationship, right? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think you're amazing. And I've learned a lot from you. And, I think you're the best. You're just a really, really good human. And he's like, then why is it the only time I hear from you is when you need money? And I mean, I still get sweaty when I share that, because it was just like a horrifying moment that I realized, like, I was absolutely part of that problem of just filling the leaky bucket, building the better mousetrap. And it wasn't that I didn't care deeply about him. He and his wife were like the fantastic humans, and I loved hanging out with them, but it was true. Like, he became, part of the numbers game. And so I think, and mainly because we were trying to move donors into our timeline, whether it be January, or December 31st or whatever, July 1, instead of working along donors on their timeline. And so changing it to a 3-year rolling average and reprioritizing your board reports to incentivize and prioritize retention and lifetime value.
Yeah.
That shifts. That's a cultural change. That's not just a tactical change.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be done no matter how big the shop is, how small the shop is. Interesting that you said that about how that makes you sweaty still this day. I had a brilliant major gifts officer on months ago on the pod, and she said, hey, you know what? It's really okay to pick up the phone and tell someone that you messed up. I haven't done a good job. You gave us $5,000 a year ago. I haven't reached out to you. No one said anything. Right. It's really because I mean, honest, you're not playing a game, but that humanizes it. I mean, it's like, I did a bad job. It's really okay. You can call me to task, but you were in, before. We want to get you back in the fold, right? Yeah. You know what I mean? And it doesn't mean that you have to ask them for money right there on the spot. Of course, I actually advise against that.
Well, it all comes down to trust, right? Yeah. All comes down. And the number one reason donors, like in every survey, say that if they don't donate to a nonprofit or don't donate as much as they feel like they could or should, it's because they don't trust that the money is going to go to where it's going to go. And when you study trust, it's interesting because there's actually a really famous study called the Edelman Trust Barometer. It comes out every year. Mm-hmm. It's been running 25 years now, and it actually assesses trust on the axis of ethics and competency. And so, as trust is basically derived is like, do I feel that you're ethical, and do I feel like you can deliver? Are you competent? And so that's an area where, like, nonprofits, I mean, we all know this intuitively because we're all consumers. Like, if I was really going to double down, if I was going to be an executive director today, I'd want to know at the core, like, interview donors and ask them, like, where are you on this, where are we on this axis of ethics and competency? If you really want to know how to move the needle, understand where your donors think you're at, and then build a plan there and have those, like, really honest conversations. I mean, to your point, it's not complicated. It's literally like, out. Yeah. I'm a donor, you're a donor. I get it. I totally get it. Like, on this axis, like, we're trying to improve as an organization to move to the top right on both ethics and competency. And, when we, in the generosity crisis, we have a rubric for what radical connection is, about like 10 different things that moves from, like, I know you, or you know me, or like, I know you and you know me. And so it moves from, like, fully, to the left transactionally to the right, where it's like, you're doing this together. Yeah. And I always say, I'm like, the rubric for success is there. Like, literally take that. If you want to know how to move that needle and to build a fundraising program that's going to stand the test of time, turn that into a survey and ask the question. The hard thing is you have to be willing to accept the answers.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of orgs don't do the survey, or don't have those discussions because they're afraid of what the answer might be.
Interesting, because I was going to ask you, that'll play really nicely. I was going to ask you, there's a common theme about trepidation about asking, and we've always said, okay, well, you can invite someone. So let's just get
Right.
the ask out of that, right? And have a
Right.
conversation. And at the end of the day, we're making friends here, right? And Francesca had a question. Is there a particular wording that is most successful to engage donors in thank you encounters that you advise? I know you just mentioned the rubric, but just some some helpful hints for the folks when engaging.
I think it's different for every fundraiser and every organization, but
Yeah.
when it comes across as I see you and I value you, that to every organization it might be different. I mean, I'm thinking about, I just had an encounter with a home here for mental disability families. It's an amazing facility in south of Nashville called Brightstone, and I went and I did a tour, and Jenny, who's a fundraiser, sent me a text, and it was like, it was so meaningful for you to come and be able to learn and hang. And I didn't need a handwritten note. I didn't need a call, but like getting a text message, because I'm busy. And that was just like, oh, that did matter.
Yes.
So I think really, I think there's no right words to say, but I think it really goes back to the premise of I see you and you matter.
Yeah.
And really making sure that comes across. I mean, it might be, do your routine letters, but take the time that you're saving on having AI draft those and kind of personalize them and write like a little sentence on there. And it's just like, oh my gosh, that's so rare now that it becomes so coveted.
We say differentiation is stronger than competition because folks are always mentioning they're competing for donors.
Yeah.
And I think that's just such an easy way. And if I mean, my own 2 cents is, if you don't know what to say, you can always say thank you, and that will never go wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You can always start there. I like to say no news is not good news, and no one's doing this.
Right.
This conversation is coming up. So no one is doing this.
Yeah.
Whether it's in my space, for profit, wherever, whatever you're choosing to make a living. Interestingly enough, I think that this doesn't, culturally, there's an issue in our space in the nonprofit sector with this, obviously going, transactional versus relational. There's been an unfortunate cultural shift, which, you wrote the book. And I actually think sometimes, Nathan, and I believe people are inherently good, and you know me well enough to know that. And I think that some of these tactics, some of these, this natural graciousness, this skill of gratitude doesn't come naturally to everyone. However, it's a skill that can be learned and it can be taught.
Sure.
And you can use tools like time blocking and different, things like that. Like, what have you seen or what have you even witnessed from an organization where they made that cultural shift internally to like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 of these a day.
Right.
3 phone calls a day. Like, who are you going to reach out to? Like, things like that can literally be time blocked, frankly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes down to incentives. And, and I was always a big KPI kind of leader, and probably to an unhealthy degree for the most part, and at least channeled in the wrong way. But, Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's business partner for most of his life, had this, the other truest business statement that I could have skipped undergrad if they just told me. But he had this statement. It was, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And it's brilliant because at the core of every activity, it's like, is this going to enable my success in an organization? And if you're incentivized, and incentivized could be a carrot or a stick, right? It could be like, this is, if you do these things, I'm going to give you a reward, or it's these things. If you don't do these things, you'll be fired. Both are incentives. Yeah. And at the end of the day, how you prioritize those incentives are everything for your organization. So if you truly mean it and you want to move the needle in creating this culture of gratitude, that your organization is known for essentially exceeding expectations, not just meeting them, but exceeding those expectations, like Ritz-Carlton or Disney do culturally as organizations, and teach on that. If you want to do that, then you have to incentivize it. You have to create the practices within your organization. Ritz-Carlton, not by chance, they do huddles every morning. They know who's coming in, who the people are that they should be paying attention to, and that it doesn't matter what your role is, like you're part of that. And so, by design, you have to create a culture that is going to, look out for and then really promote that sense of belonging. And so, I think it really comes down to, if it's something that people do as an add-on at the end of their day when they're already tired and you know, you just overwhelmed and exhausted by all the other work that they're doing, or is it the thing that you start your day with? And I got into a habit when I was leading. I had a team of about 200 people, and their work anniversary. So a work anniversary and a birthday. Those are 2 dates that every person had. So that's 400 cards that I would write every year. But I would start my day every single day, and I would write my cards for birthday and work anniversary. It's 400 a year. And to be honest, the biggest beneficiary of that was me.
I was going to ask you if you felt better from doing
Yeah,
it.
of course. Like, it started my day out in a moment of gratitude, and then that just continues, right? It's like, oh, I see you, I appreciate you, and that just feels good as a human to be part of that. And so I think it's something that we've been treating donor relations and stewardship as an afterthought and a necessary thing that we had to do because we've been told that we have to do it, versus being the primary thing that we center our culture around.
Yeah. We've been talking about attitude and energy a lot internally, and how important it starts with the attitude, right? And the behaviors and all these. And I love the incentive piece. I love that you hit that. And the energy that can come as a result is really, really big.
Going to just a tad on AI, because of the pace of innovation is so fast, and because the average person interacts with between 3,000 to 5,000 algorithms per day. That's not, we receive 333 emails a day, get 80 Slack messages, like all the things. Like, we can go from morning till night, do a lot of quote unquote productive things, and just be completely exhausted. Yeah. And we will not have been curious. We will not have been creative. We'll not thought about our place in the world, what it means today, what happens when I die, any of those things. We'll just like swipe our life away. And I started about a year ago, and we all know this, so it's not intuitive or it's not unintuitive, but I started a year ago. I found a place in my house that, like, literally, I'm just going to declare this is like the no phone zone.
Yeah.
And it was earlier in the morning. I'm a morning person. So morning person or evening person, whatever, but designate a place where technology is not allowed. Give yourself 15 minutes there to I keep a notebook and a pen just because, like, some days I write in it and sometimes I don't, but let that be your ritual, because the pace of innovation will not slow down. You have to create your own destiny. You're going to have to put on those boundaries and barriers to create that space. And I think that's true individually for us, as especially people that work in this sector. And I think it's corporately as well. Like, have a time and a place for our organization that allows people to think and dream and reflect, because we live in a world where anything is possible in the future of AI, but we'll never capitalize on that future if we don't have the space to wonder about what that possibility might look like.
Yeah, you're a big proponent of being curious.
I mean,
creating a space to be that way.
We're at the cusp of an intelligence explosion, 2027. So the intelligence explosion means that intelligence is basically a commodity. So the differentiator is curiosity and adaptability. And as a parent of a very smart, 25-year-old, I'm like, your intellect is no longer your competitive advantage. Like, I have to be honest with him about it. It's not. It always has been. Up until now, it always has been his competitive advantage. So it doesn't matter if you're smart. It matters if you're curious and you're adaptable. And so, and with that, like, that goes into the human essence of like who we are. Just like, we got to take a step back and invite that time, in, and to think and wonder and to do the things, because we deserve it. Our missions deserve it.
Yeah. We created a technology free zone. I guess we did it inadvertently in our house, where we put a vinyl record on, and before supper, sometimes after supper too, I color mandalas with my 7-year-old and my wife.
Nice.
So
yeah.
I had to share that because it's like recency. It's like it happens every day.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Otherwise, life's just going to pass us by. And
100%.
And the burnout's real.
100%. There is a, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I want to say, you said it's a wild coincidence that all these things were happening, and then we had the greatest, once again, yes, the greatest innovation technologically, bigger than like you said, bigger than the internet, bigger than electricity,
for sure.
At the same time, because let's get in the AI piece. at the same time all this was happening, now we have the tools that we have tools now that are getting better exponentially daily that we've never had before as human beings and as fundraisers.
Right.
Talk to that a little bit, and how monumental that shift has been and is going to be. We're at the 3rd year anniversary just recently of generative AI.
Yeah, last week. Last week. I mean, that's the optimistic side of me where, I definitely can worry about the future and write a book called The Generosity Crisis. But at the end of the day, I'm an optimist because I believe that people want to do good things. Like at the core, I think from a net perspective that humans are good and want to help each other. Like we're pro-social beings in the sense that if we were not, we would not be here. Like, I mean, there's proof in the sense of like, any species that cared more about themselves than anyone around them would no longer survive. So we're here, so I believe that we tap into that. I think, when I reflect on all the challenges, and it's hard, right? All the things that we talked about in the generosity crisis, all the things that everyone feels every day, it's like the goals go up, the resources go down, that the headwinds, the political headwinds, the executive orders, like the societal pressures, all those things could be completely overwhelming. But to what you're recapping is this like epiphany. I'm like, well, imagine if that was just the end of the story. Like, well, good luck. We're just like, just figure it out.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I realized one day, being a technologist and a little bit of a futurist, I'm like, how daunting would that have been if at the same time, not by design, but if at the same time we weren't basically handed humanity's biggest breakthrough ever? And probably, from an AI perspective, like, and this will sound weird, but as technologists, we talk about AI being humanity's last invention, because no other invention ever created, whether in biosciences or anything, will have been done without AI. And so, how daunting would all of those things be if at the same time we hadn't developed this technology that knows something about everything, and by the way, knows our sector extremely well.
Yes.
And can be like a left and right arm to like, really amplify impact and effort and engagement. So I remain really optimistic, and that's where I balance of like, yes, we've got to do this and we have to do it right, and we have to avoid unintended consequences and be the AI conscience and all those things. But we also need to just go. Like we need to like forget everything that we've done in the past. Forget if you tried it and it didn't work. Forget if it's like your quote unquote best practice, because if you've been doing something for more than 3 years, it's totally outdated. And, approach your work as if anything is possible. Even for me personally, I was working on my 2026 like roadmap plan, or what I'm going to do. Just like, I'm really driven by the idea of scaling impact using AI. And I went into ChatGPT a week ago and I was like, here's everything I did last year. I did like 134 presentations in 2025. I wrote all these articles and whatever. Forget all of that. I'm not interested in any of it. Give me 20 out of the box ideas that are totally different than the things I've done in the past. And I literally, my document is called Anything is Possible.
Yeah.
And so I've got this Google sheet now with 20 ideas. About 4 of them really sucked, but 16 of them actually have merit on ways where, and my other prerequisite was, and I need to be able to do this with traveling 20% less.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, like if you approach your work as anything is possible, I think you'll be blown away.
Yeah. What was one of the, if you don't mind sharing and peeling the curtain back, what was one of the ideas or a couple of them that got you the most juiced up?
I mean, some of them are deeply personal, and not that I can't share, but like they're not scalable, but they're like going to fill my, like, it's like hosting a certain number of dinners in key cities that I'm in of just like people talking with people. But others are actually like the scalable ones are like create basically a curriculum that people can go through. Like it takes me, instead of doing like a million workshops, it's like literally get a recording studio and record 8 series that I can actually deploy, and then it like scales that impact. So, there are some really good nuances in there that when, in fact, we're meeting with our team tomorrow just to go through them and being like, yep, this one, not this one, because we can't do everything, but it definitely gets you out of that zone of like, I'm just going to do, I'm going to travel every week and I'm going to do 150 presentations next year. That's just exhausting.
Totally. Yeah, I know you've been on the road heavy, man, for a lot of years. So
Yeah.
there's a lot going on, man.
I always think it's going to slow down.
But we appreciate it. You're in high demand. Hey, I want a couple. We could have this conversation for 120 minutes, if not more. A couple house cleaning things. Sandy's going to pop up a text prompt so we can give away some books. We're going to give away some of Nathan's books. We're going to give away an item. So you can text or win. Cool. To 73747. That's pretty fun. And then also, Sandy, you have a poll question, and I love this. I giggled my off because it was completely unprovoked, but because we are in the event space, I wanted to throw up a poll question about events. How many events must a new donor attend before they hit the commitment sweet spot, so to speak, and are likely to become a long-term supporter? This was derived from a conversation I've already had with Nathan. Yeah. And once again, completely unprovoked, and he hit me in between the eyes with it. And we'll have Nathan tell the story behind it. But if you can go ahead and answer the trivia question or the poll question. Trivia, you're funny, Sandy. That's awesome. Hey, and then I see I want to do a call for questions as well. We got Nathan for another 10 minutes. Thank you for being so polite with your time, brother.
Of course.
You, so generous with your time. Kim, great to see you again. That's awesome. Yeah, it was good feedback. Chris, my brother. Yeah, 3-year rolling average. Yeah, why do things need to fit in our calendar, in our fiscal, what? Why not make it to, because as you mentioned, it's so funny. I love that. I kind of got people kind of talked me out of saying donors are consumers at the end of the day. I think I had like some pushback, and I started becoming afraid to say that. But I'm not afraid anymore because you said it again. So.
I mean, if you write a book called The Generosity Crisis, you don't care anymore.
I haven't really cared for much.
I mean, we're all consumers, right? Yeah, I mean, everyone has a take on different things. I mean, we're all consumers, and we evaluate based on, we based on trust, based on emotions, we value based on value. Yeah. I mean, all of those things. And so, there's always going to be people that disagree. I think that at the end of the day, my imposter syndrome, I mean, I had a lot writing the book, because I just this is like the world's, most optimistic group of people. And I'm writing a book that basically craps, it sounds like it craps on it. It doesn't. But at the end of the day, it was the reconciliation that it didn't matter if people liked it or didn't like it. The truth is the truth. The numbers are the numbers. I didn't make those up. Those came from other people. That at the end of the day, if people were willing to love it or hate it, it was still a win. Yeah. If they're talking about why they loved it or hated it, so if someone says I don't think donors are consumers, that's an invitation to a conversation.
Exactly. Precisely. And nothing but good come out of that.
Right. And the worst, my grandfather wrote a book in 1971 called Crisis by Consent. It's up on my shelf. And he was a geologist, a PhD geologist. And he talked about the environment. And he's, basically his entire premise for most of his life was the greatest threat to humanity was people not caring. So essentially apathy, that just literally the person that goes to bed at night, not even thinking if they should care in the first place, that's humanity's greatest threat. And that applies to the environment, that applies to AI, that applies to our sector. Yeah. And, the answer to that is get people to engage, have conversation, challenge, why do you not like that? Why? And again, I kind of in my head almost pictured people around a dinner table talking about how much they hated my book. Yeah. And then I remember kind of smiling about that. Because if that was true, if there was a mom talking to her kids and they're this book is the worst, it comes up with all the wrong conclusions and this is why. And I'm total score.
Nice. Yeah.
And so I think we have to get okay in our sector. We work in a polite sector. Yes. We have to get okay with, recognizing that kindness is not just going along and saying what other people want to hear.
Totally. Well, you can be kind in the Discord as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
All right. It's required, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah.
No, please go ahead.
Well, I just wrote an article about it this weekend on Saturday, and it was really it was this pent up thing. I woke up at 3 a.m. and it was I had to tell my son about this whole thing of intelligence is not going to get you there, and being kind and saying you're going to be fine to our employees, to our workers, and not being willing to have the conversation is not kindness. And everyone's feeling this tension. It's interesting because this is the most read article I've ever written. It's got 15,000 views as of this morning. it's like it's striking a chord. I've had a couple chief development officers make it required reading already to their team, because I think it just kind of says what people are feeling in a way that's still compassionate.
Well, you have a fascinating way of understanding that pulse in our space, so appreciate that. And we can put that article in the show notes as well that folks can access. And you can probably grab that on LinkedIn, right? By just checking out your
yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's my last article on LinkedIn.
Well, if you don't mind talking about your the data that you're able to derive from folks going to, the answer was 3 consecutive events. We are pro social beings, as you mentioned, and I'm not getting on the soapbox being the event fella or the event company, but talk about what you found. I know you were at City of Hope when you're able to derive all this data and this information about events. Talk about that if you don't mind.
In fact, that actually came after City of Hope.
Okay, pardon me.
Because it became much broader and more substantiated. So City of Hope, we built the first algorithm that predicted which patients were likely to make a donation. After that, I led a company that started building custom AI models for about 150 of the largest charities in America. And it was just really interesting because machine learning, well, it sounds harder. It's actually much easier to understand, like, how is a prediction being made? It's being made by a lot of different data points. These data points are called variables, and the variables have their own prediction power. So like how old you are or how many events you attend actually have different prediction power. So those variables. And so over and over again, so anytime we'd build a model, we'd start looking at it and be like, okay, what are the top 50 things? Like the top 50 things for, someone making a major gift. And then repeatedly, we started looking at the data, and it's like event attendance. And then we started plotting event attendance because event attendance is like one of the most visceral kind of things you can have, right? It's like there's nothing that replaces that. I mean, your brain's firing. It's like experiencing sights and smells and people and anxiousness and all the things that like are the makings of something special. And it turned out that when we started plotting event attendance, it wasn't just attending an event, but attending a third event became the highest indicator of someone making a major gift. And, I've attended my fair share of events. I mean, City of Hope, we had about 200 a year around the country, and I flew a lot. I mean, I've had more chicken dinners than the average person ever should. And so it made a lot of sense. So like that first time you attend an event, there's probably some trepidation. You're like, oh, I don't really know about this organization. Somebody invited me. I guess I'll go. The second time, you could have said no. If it was a horrible experience and the food sucked and it was just like, these are not my people, I would have not gone. But you went the second time because you're at least curious enough and you were like, well, it wasn't horrible. I'm going to go again. But the third is like you went by choice. And so the third event, you were like, I'm in. I've already had the chicken dinner and I've heard the stories, and now I feel like I'm part of this tribe. And it turns out that even attending 4, 5, 6, 7, it doesn't increase the propensity that you're going to make a major gift. It's 3 is like the magic number. And that's freeing for nonprofits to be like, how do we get people from 0 to 3?
Yeah.
And then those that are in 3, don't forget about them. Don't take this the wrong way. But like those people are locked and loaded. Like those are people that are going to go the distance with you. So do all the stewardship stuff, but like put your emphasis on getting people to that magic 3. It was, that's where data science, where I really got into this in 2017, 2018. Aristotle talked about the idea of giving away money is easy, but to decide who to give it to, when to give it, and for what purpose and what way was really hard.
Yeah.
And that's when AI really uncovered this epiphany. And that was at City of Hope, where it was like, we just answered some questions that have been looming for 2,300 years. That's insane. Like for the first time in history, we're able to like definitively answer questions that are never before answerable. And so that happened to be one of them. And it's great because I think we all know the power of events because of how it makes you feel, and it takes effort in this day more than ever. And to actually know that statistically it actually drives significant value toward that end it's really good.
That's awesome. Yeah, once again, unprovoked.
Especially if you're in the event business. Right?
Yeah, that was so great. Hope everyone heard that. That was amazing. No, and hopefully it's encouraging. And the conversation has been just like they always are with you, man. I can't thank you enough. It's amazing. Oh, good. Is that the article?
That's the article. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks
Hopefully
for sharing that,
if you're a parent, if you are, someone that's working up your way in your career, if you're a leader, it's kind of like I actually have a call out for each of those areas. And so there's something there for you.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Hey, can you hang with us for one more minute while I call a winner? Is that cool?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, here I go. I'm going to call a winner, and Sandy's posting the book winners up, and you're just going to email Sandy your mailing address, and we'll get you one of Nathan's books, if not both of them. So yeah, happy to do it. I'm going to call a winner real quick. Sandy, if you're okay with it, I'm going to give away a golden ticket that the winner can use at their next event. Just kidding. I'm going to do it right now. Awesome. Make sure your ringer's on, of course. Hello, good afternoon. Who am I speaking with?
My name is Debbie McGinn.
Hey, Debbie, this is Trevor Nelson. How are you?
Oh, my gosh. I can't
believe Well, believe it, because I'm calling you in real time. Hey, thank you so much for coming on the webinar today. Hope you enjoyed it, and we're going to deliver a golden ticket to you that you can use at your next event. Who are you raising money for, Debbie?
So I work for Phoenixville Area Community Services.
Awesome.
And we're a nonprofit food center in Phoenixville, PA. So we're helping a lot of folks who are struggling at this particular time more so than usual.
Oh, well, thank you so much for doing that. And thank you so much for coming on. Hope you got a lot out of the webinar. Nathan's a joy. And hopefully we can help you raise some money with the golden ticket, okay?
That'd be great. And yes, I did enjoy it. And I opened up the article, so I plan on reading it as soon as we end this.
Far out. Well, thanks so much, Debbie. Appreciate your time. Do us a favor and connect with Nathan if you haven't already, and show him some support, and tell him thank you, if you don't mind, from us. And can't thank you enough for joining us. And congratulations on winning the golden ticket. Happy holidays if we don't speak to you before, okay?
Thank you. Great. Yeah, thank you to both of you.
All right. Thanks, Nick. Take care. Bye now.
You too. Bye.
That's cool, huh?
That's fun. Yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, you don't see that. So well done. Well done. Right. Yeah, that's great.
Hey, thanks for hanging on for a few extra minutes with us, man. It means a lot. Yeah. Appreciate you. Appreciate everybody, Debbie, everyone, for coming. Thanks for the engagement, the questions, for your time, more than anything, for the work that you all do. As mentioned, connect with Nathan on LinkedIn and thank him from us if you don't mind, if you haven't already. Nathan, can't thank you enough, brother. We'll be in touch, and hopefully we can share a meal soon. So
excellent. Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Thanks, Sandy. Talk to everybody soon.